Hello guys, and welcome back to another Enshrouded guide, and today we're going to be going over the changes to farming in update 7, because you might be surprised to hear that there's been some huge changes that they've implemented which they didn't actually talk about, and more importantly there's some bigger ones that I suspect are coming, given that these changes aren't necessarily fully integrated into the game. So today we're going to cover the new water storage system, as well as why you might want to use one of these in your build, as well as how all the different plants are affected by different soils, and more importantly why they're teasing something else that's going to be coming later on. And more importantly, why I think we're going to see quite a big rework to farming in the future. Let's get into it. So when it comes to the new water storage system, before we could grab water out of the well, and then from there we'd be able to use that in crafting these things. So from here we can now fill our seed beds by pressing this, and this is going to take water from our handheld pumps or any water vestibules that we have. So let's quickly get rid of this here. I'll just drop them in, and then we'll go to the next one, and you'll also notice that we have water in our well. So the well works very much in the same way. Any water that it has stored will be able to fill your seed beds. Now if we just drink all of the water, actually let's just get rid of that. I should make sure we've got rid of all of these. Now if we go back here and we click this, notice how we've ran out of water. We now cannot add any more to be used in this seedbed. Well, this is where the water storage comes in. So we're just going to let's just grab the one for now. With this pump, if we fill up our water storage, it works the same way as the storage does in the water wells. So now if we were to return to this, we would be able to fill up from the storage, which is all well and good. However, the problem is that we then have to fill these up. Well, thankfully, weather systems are in game and they actually affect these buckets. So though you can't fill water from an active water source into these buckets, water will come in the form of rain and fill up these buckets. So by having a couple of these around your base, you're going to be able to save yourself excess water for when your improved water wells run out. Failing that, you can fill them up manually by going to a water source with a pump or even a watering can, and then just sucking up the water and putting it inside. But if it's passive, it's better because we're doing less work. With that out the way, let's move on to the next subject, which is this system here that we have developed. So obviously we have a water well in the background. That's more for decorational purposes at this moment in time. A water well? A water wheel? Goodness me. But obviously we will have presumably more machines in 1.0 that will use force in order to run. So we can expect that we're going to need to use these in our world. But we do have these stepped paddy farms, and this came from this beautifully designed little village of Orville. So if we head over there, perfect, it's raining. So if we quickly head over here, you'll notice now that the water butts are slowly filling up. Of course, it stops raining now, but you can see how these have filled. I actually filled this one a little bit before, but this one was empty. So there you are, rain now fills the water butts. And here we are. We quickly head up over here. You can see how it has these rice paddies and a stepped system so that water can be filled into these via this sluice gate. Unfortunately, as it stands, the water is not passing much further than this. So at this point, we have to guess either that it's just decorational and for aesthetic purpose, or that water isn't quite implemented how they have it planned in future updates. And we know that they push back the update to try and fix some bugs. I think what might have happened is that they've implemented it as a light version, and later on they're going to improve on this so that water will travel further, and thus water will flow into the rice paddies and then down into the next one. But more importantly, that water will also be needed in order to irrigate land so that these plants can also be watered. At the moment, we do not need to water plants with the exception of our rice paddies and also the algae, which we'll talk on about in a moment because that's also another reason why I think there are changes coming. But if we grab our watering can, which I just so happen to leave at our base, so we'll head back there, you'll notice if we go over to the rice paddy and we hover our watering can over the rice seedlings, that we now have a status bar in the bottom right. And this tells us the status of growth. There are, for this particular plant, 3 stages, which is seedling, nourished but not ripe, and then we have our seeded point where we're able to harvest the rice. In fact, if we open this, you'll be able to see, we close that really quickly, how these have gone to the second stage. And this is great. This means that we have different considerations dependent on what plants we're using. And as I mentioned, rice and algae are the first of the plants to require water, and more importantly, being under the surface of water. So rice requires to be covered ground with water, so it needs to have water flowing over to it, whereas our algae, which is here, needs to be fully submerged. At the moment, if we head over to this little setup over here, and I open this up, this is how you would submerge it. You don't actually need to use a sluice gate, by the way. You could just fill this rice paddy, fill it with the water, and the water will stay there. It doesn't disappear, which is another reason why I think we might have additional improvements to water and irrigating so that water will eventually disappear from this area, although it's disappeared here. There was a patch the other day, so it might be that this has changed. But I'm just going to fill this up as high as we possibly can. Let's close that. And it is safe to say now that the rice paddy is fully submerged. We're pretty much able to swim in this, but it's only showing itself as covered ground. In fact, if I grab the rice seedling and we fill this up, you can see that these are fully submerged. However, if we add our rice in here, notice how it is still ripening and going through the stages already. And if we hover over it, it still counts as covered ground. There's no difference between fully submerged and covered ground. So why would you make a difference between the two in the status effect? Well, I think changes are coming in regards to that. But before we go more into details about why I think there are changes coming and more potential changes that are coming, you're probably wondering, why do you need to build something like this? And at the moment, you don't. This is definitely overkill because you could set something up like this, which is always flooded, and then just plant your algae and your rice in there. And you don't need to worry. It's just going to automatically ripen over time, and then you'll get the resources. But I do think that there will be changes coming at a later date. And if we do a system like this, where we use sluice gates, you'll notice that the water runs out. So unless that's going to change, only half of this field is going to actually ripen. He says, and now everything is starting to ripen. But you can see how this bottom section isn't. This has 96 seedlings in it. Slightly getting there. We'll come back to this in a moment. But this section over here, which I think is 4 lines of 24 times 4. Yeah, so that is just shy of 100. It's 96. If we open this up, because we have a tiered system where it steps down gradually, the water flows all the way to the bottom, and providing we leave the sluice gate open, it all ripens. This is a great system and it looks really cool. And more importantly, if changes are coming for irrigation, having something like this where we can just open up and then close down the sluice gate so that we irrigate the farm and then we stop the water flowing. Maybe it'll be a time-based system of what's submerged or not. Then this will allow us to easily irrigate and open this whenever we want to upgrade or get to the next stage of rice. So I highly recommend doing it. And this system is really simple. It's just a stepped system. So we have 1.5 foundations on each step. And then at the end, we have our water held back by the sluice gates and a little water dispenser. We've only got 2 in this section for all 3 sections, and it works a charm. Over on this side, we have a full kind of aqueduct system, and it's just being held back so that we can flood each of these sections should we wish. But I don't have any drains in there, so there's not really much point to doing that for now. But that is something that I could potentially work on at a later date. If you would like me to cover the exact setup of this in a future build, then do let me know in the comments below and we will do exactly that. I am going to be doing a riverside build or coast side build in the water biome, which should look a fair bit more detailed and beautiful than this. So if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments below, and obviously subscribe and I'll keep you informed. It'll probably be in a different playlist. But now that we've covered this kind of system and why I think the tiered system's going to be better in the future, I wanted to cover a few more reasons why I think we're going to get changes to farming. At the moment, it doesn't really make sense to have a watering can for watering individual plants. So what I presume will happen is that we will have to water them in order to ripen them, rather than them just ripening over dry ground without any issues. Maybe even rain will affect that, so you might have to use it in particularly dry, arid biomes, or for crops that require more watering. But we also have different soils for different plants. Now, here we can see that the strawberry seedlings prefer fertilized farm soil, flowered soil, or farm soil. If we go over to the rice paddy, these require fertile vale water, sand, or basin dirt. And so, depending on what plant we have, we're going to need to think about where we're planting it. More importantly, at the moment, let's go to my other farm. We should have some there. If you look at saffron, which I have just over here, saffron doesn't like any soil. It has no preferred soil, which isn't actually true. They're just avoiding telling us exactly what it is that it prefers. But saffron's an interesting one, because if we take our rice seedling, you'll notice that if we go on this sand here, this says that the terrain is unsuited, and the same with the algae. But if we take our saffron, which doesn't like any of this dirt, it doesn't say that terrain is not suitable. However, if we place the saffron in the fertilized farm soil, and also this one, which I think is the normal sand, if we leave this, we're going to see that the saffron is going to ripen faster in the sand over the fertile farm soil. Okay, and here we are. And you can see it's taken all night, but this is already at stage 2, whereas the fertilized farm soil is at stage 1. So obviously, even though it's saying that it doesn't prefer sand, it prefers sand over fertilized farm soil, which suggests there's a tiered system to the sand that we use as well. Another really interesting thing is that if we go over to the peppers with our watering cans, you'll notice that under preferred soil, there are 3 soils. There's fertilized farm soil, and then a mystery soil. And I haven't found this mystery soil for any of the other things that I have planted. Maybe it's just I haven't found that soil yet. I don't think that's the truth, because as far as I know, I've found everything. So please let me know if you've seen this in your game and you know what that mystery soil is. But it could mean that we've got another soil type that is going to be coming to the game at a later date. And finally, the one other reason above all else that I think that we are going to receive an update to farming in the game, outside of what I've already mentioned, is that farming's great in the game. It's really well done, but it sucks. And I don't mean this to say that it's a bad system or that it's a bad game because of it. It's just that if we want to plant anything or if we want to harvest anything, we have to manually go over and collect each item individually by pressing E. And this sucks. Not only do we have to do that for collecting everything and harvesting it at all, but we also have to do the same for seeding, and it takes even longer with seeding, especially if you don't have the seeds, because you have to place them each individually. It's not even a case of spamming E like we're doing here. So something does need to change, and this was something that I was quite vocal about in my previous farming guide on my main channel. But I think that we will see some kind of automation brought into the game for 1.0, or at the very least, tools that will make it easier for us. So for example, a Reaper that if we click E will select all of the plants within a slightly wider radius. Or if we're planting, maybe like an actual seed planter that we can drop 5 or 10 seeds down at once. I think that needs to come, and I think it's promising seeing the update that we've received, as it definitely, for me, points to us receiving a bigger update later on regarding that. But we are going to leave it there for today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you would like us to cover this tiered system in an upcoming video and just dedicate it to that, then let me know in the comments below. And the same if you'd like to see us do the Riverside build, which I'm planning to do over this waterfall here. And maybe we'll do one episode or one section of it, and if you guys really enjoy that, we'll work on doing a whole village around here. Let me know in the comments below. But guys, if you're wondering what to watch next, why not check out my ultimate guide to farming, which focuses on this setup here and doing all these planters and how you should plant everything in certain batches. I'll link that in the end shot now. But until next time, as always, ciao for now.